Hi, I'm Demetria, and I offer podcasting advice, strategies, and support for heart-aligned entrepreneurs who want to share their message with purpose, make an impact, and grow their network. So welcome to the show, and you're listening to Soul Podcasting, episode 18. Today's show is sponsored by Faith Media and Impact Podcast Coach, which is a service that supports women podcasters to boldly share their voices and their powerful messages through the medium of podcasting. Find out more about our podcast coaching services by visiting impactpodcastcoach.com. Today, we're going to be talking about choosing podcast topics that your listener will love. So if you're new to the show, welcome. I love podcasting. I've been podcasting for almost 2 decades. I started in 2005, and I've started a total of 8, and currently I'm hosting 4, one of which is beginning to pod fade. So actually host 3 at the moment. And it is a lot of fun for me. It is almost like a life calling, and I'm driven to provide valuable content to audiences that I know will be served well through this medium. I love podcasting for so many reasons, but one of them is the fact that the topics that I bring to the table with my guests are topics that my listeners really want to hear about, and that's why they listen to the podcast. So when you create your podcast, you'll want to think about topics that you know your listener and your audience wants to hear. They want to hear this from you because you're the one to share with them what they need. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips, actually quite a few on this episode. So if you have a pen and a notebook and you want to take notes on this one, this is the time to do it, because this episode is going to be a little bit meaty. There's going to be a lot of content here. I will include the outline in the show notes, so you'll be able to see that. But I do have a lot of tips for you today about choosing podcast topics. So one of the things that we get stuck on as podcasters is what to say after we've said all that we think we're going to say. After, let's say we're 10 episodes in and we're thinking, well, now what can I possibly have to say next, right? To keep this podcast going, what am I going to do? Which is why I like to encourage anyone that goes through a coaching session with me to always have a good batch of topics that you're planning to discuss for the upcoming 6 months to a year of your podcasting journey, just so that you have a valuable source for people to come to when they see your podcast listing in Apple Podcasts and there's nothing there. There's 2 or 3 episodes and there's nothing else there. So we want to make sure that you do have valuable content that you can put out on a regular basis. And there's different ways you can go about doing that. But today, as far as topics go, how do you curate those topics? So the first step I'm going to give you is to remember your mission. This is always going to be my number one. Remember your vision, remember your mission, remember why you started. What's your why? You'll hear me say that so often, you'll probably get sick of it, but I've said it on almost every podcast episode so far. But that is your basis. It's remembering your mission. Why are you starting this thing? This is a huge project. It's a big undertaking. And so when you podcast, you're not just throwing out your random ideas. You have a mission and a reason that you are podcasting. There is a reason why you want your voice to be heard. There's a particular message you're trying to get out to the world. And even if you sound a little bit random at times, those who are listening to you are listening for a reason. There's some underlying message. There's something that you want to get out there into the world that you want to share with your listener. And they feel that, they get it, and that's why they hang on to your podcast and they keep listening. So remember your mission. And then you want to create pillar content topics for the year that solves problems, okay? And I say for the year because, again, I'm all about batching. So 6 months to a year, you should have a good number of topics so that you're not floundering around trying to find something to say next time. And I do like to batch a lot of my episodes in advance, but it's not always possible. So if I'm at a week where I just don't have anything pre-recorded, I'll go ahead and hop on the mic and use one of my content topics that I've already decided was going to be something we talked about for the year, and I'll just start talking about it. So you'll want to make sure that those topics solve a problem that your listener has. So if your podcast is about self-care, then you probably will have a good number of topics already curated in your topic bank list of self-care related ideas that you want to bring to the table. And each of those ideas are going to be topics that will solve a particular problem that your audience has. There's a lady that I listen to frequently. She doesn't know probably that I listen to her a lot. I met her recently, and I'm going to go ahead and say the name of her podcast, but it's called In Love with PMDD, and it's by Rose Alcaten, and her podcast is so niche and her topics are so specific to solving the problems of those who are impacted by PMDD. So those who are interested in that topic, they can find Rose's podcast, and each of her episodes are going to address a particular topic related to this condition. So when you know what your audience's particular problem is, you want to break that problem down into several different aspects and also several different solutions that you can help bring a different light to the topic, to the broader topic with some subtopics, and then bring solutions to those subtopics. So create those pillar content topics for, I would say, up to a year. If you're going to be podcasting twice a month, then that means you need 24 topics. If you're going to be podcasting every week, you need 48 topics. But having that in mind is going to help you to facilitate your podcasting efforts and how to go about bringing those topics to the table, whether you're going to bring in a guest or whether you're going to provide that content yourself. Then you'll want to brainstorm those sessions. So set aside time, a dedicated time. This is tip number 3, by the way. Set aside dedicated time for brainstorming. You're going to start with a blank page, whether that blank page is your computer, Microsoft Word or Google Docs, or it is an actual notebook. You're going to have a blank page and you're going to jot down any ideas that come to your mind, regardless of how feasible or even unique they might seem. Consider current trends, consider controversial topics, frequently asked questions. You can even find FAQs on message boards or Facebook groups. They don't have to be specifically questions people have asked you in particular. Just make sure that people are asking these questions. And then you can find also emerging issues within your niche. So what's happening within your industry and niche, and write all of these ideas down in your brainstorming session. This is going to help you to come up with your pillar contents. The next thing, number 4, is to conduct keyword research. Now, I conduct keyword research because I feel like it's an important part of my digital marketing strategy. You don't have to include this if this doesn't faze you right now, if you're not really concerned about the keyword and about the SEO, and you're really more concerned about getting the content out there, then you don't need to worry about this. But if you're looking at a long-term marketing strategy as an important aspect of your podcasting, then you'll want to conduct keyword research. So use tools like Google Trends or keyword research tools. I use Key Search sometimes. I've also used Neil Patel's Uber Suggest. You can also use social media listening platforms to identify popular keywords and topics related to your niche. And this can help you to see what's popular, what are people searching for, and this can provide insights into what people are really looking for. But you can also include a hint for you for a later time. You can include those keywords in your titles and descriptions to make them more relevant for SEO and more compatible for search engines. So I think that was number 4. So we're on to tip number 5, which is to map it out in your tool of choice, meaning map out your topics. Now that you have them gathered, you know what you're going to talk about, you have your 20 to 40 topics, map it out in your tool of choice. So you will want to map this out on your Google Calendar, or you will want to use your choice of tools like Trello or Asana or ClickUp, whatever your favorite tools are. Pick a tool, stick with it, map it out. Currently, I haven't figured out what my favorite tool is yet. I am still debating on whether or not I like Trello versus Asana versus ClickUp. I find something interesting in each of them, but I certainly, for sure, am using my Google Calendar as kind of my backbone for everything. So I just go ahead and load everything into my calendar for now. And I'm using Google Docs and I'm using spreadsheets. So figure out what's best for you and then map that out on your calendar so that you know when the day comes you're supposed to publish something. So another thing that I do in my Google Calendar is that I have several calendars that I use for different things. So I have a personal calendar. So when I'm working on the publication schedule, I have that calendar that I created, and also one for my production schedule. So I have a production and a publication. Those are 2 different calendars. That way, when I look at my production schedule, I see what I need to be producing that day. When I look at my publication schedule, I need to see what is supposed to be published that week or that month. So I know when those happen and I can tell my guests, okay, your interview will be published on X date. So that's not necessarily my production date. It is my publication date, which is very different than when I'm actually producing the content. Recording, editing, that kind of thing happens separately from, of course, the publication date. So I have two different calendars and I only open the one that I need at the moment. So in Google Docs, it's easy to set up multiple calendars and you can see everything at once, or you can decide to close one calendar down so you don't have to look at it all and it's not confusing. But that's one way that I am able to keep up with my production. So every week I come in and I look at what I'm supposed to be producing that week. And I only focus on producing because, again, when I schedule out my content, it will show up automatically on the day it's supposed to because I schedule it on the day that it needs to be scheduled and we're done. So map it out. Having it mapped out is going to keep you so organized so that you know what happens when and you're not falling behind. And that is the only reason why I'm able to balance the 3 to 4 podcasts that I've been able to because of this organization tool. So number 6, you want to plan your first recording session. That's a very easy tip because we all know that we got to get in there and start recording at some point. So go ahead and plan that first session. The way I plan is to take the information that I had mapped out on my calendar and take that one specific topic, head on over to my Google Docs, break that topic down into several subtopics. If I have a guest coming on, then they're going to talk about it. If I'm going to talk about it, then I need to outline it and do the research on that topic so that I can then record. So number 7 is to solve problems and provide value. Consider topics that address common challenges. Okay, so this is kind of reiterating the number 2, which was to create pillar content topics that solve problems. But let's talk about solving problems again. You want to make sure that you're providing solutions and valuable insights to your audience. So again, bring in those educational expert interviews, content, have deep dives into specific subjects that can be compelling for your listeners that are seeking practical information. And you're doing all of that as you're planning in number 6, your first recording session. Number 8, again, leverage your current events and trends. Stay up to date with latest news, industry trends, cultural events that are related to your niche. Anything going on right now, make sure that's in your planning session. You'll want to discuss timely topics that can attract a wider audience and spark conversations. So with my homeschool podcast, for that one, I make sure that if it's, for example, right now it's summertime. So at this recording, it is June, and when I record the next couple of episodes for my Homeschool Moms podcast, I'm going to make sure that they receive content that's going to help them in making decisions about their brand new year. So whether it's planning or homeschooling high school, homeschooling middle school, all these things. So we're going to make sure that they get more information to help them get their fresh start into homeschooling in August. So think about seasons. What season is your listener in right now? What are the current trends happening in your industry right now? I know that a lot of homeschoolers are thinking about what to do with their kids during the summer, like to work with their children in between the grades. So how can they help to keep their kids motivated to learn math and science over the summer, keeping their language arts skills up to par? So I'll be talking about some of that. So just make sure that you know where your listener is at that season. If it's the holiday season, or if you talk to a particular audience of a certain faith, then you know what those holidays are and you can address topics about those holidays at that time. And then, of course, things that are happening right now within your industry, you want to hop on that and talk about it. With time, I'll be sharing more about what's happening currently within the world of podcasting. I figured, again, as I said, and I mentioned in a previous episode, that my first 20 episodes were just going to be like basic, laying the foundation for podcasting. And then from here on out, we'll be talking with more experts and giving more advice about what's happening currently in the industry of podcasting. But I just wanted to lay these foundations about getting started. And after that, then we're off to sail for more intensive content. So just kind of be aware of the different ways you can get information to add into your podcast that will be relevant to your audience. Number 9, consider collaborating with guests. I talked about guest podcasting on the last episode. So you want to invite industry experts and thought leaders or interesting individuals as guests on your podcast. Their perspectives, their experiences, and their expertise can really bring a set of fresh ideas and unique discussions to your podcast show. So you want to make sure that you're getting these different voices on your show. If that is the type of podcast you want to have, you don't have to interview people. But again, if you want to, this can bring a fresh perspective. And so consider that type of collaboration. Number 10, you'll want to explore different formats for your show. So as you're thinking about topics, think about the format. For example, you can have interview-based episodes, right? So that would be with your guests. And then that could change the topics potentially based on what your guests are bringing to the table. If you have solo episodes, you're completely in charge of what you're going to talk about based on your own expertise. Again, roundtable discussions, case studies even, or narrative storytelling. All these different variations can help you generate fresh ideas and cater to different listener preferences. Number 11, engage with your audience. They will tell you, believe me, your listeners will help you to discover what your topic should be. So encourage your listeners to submit topic suggestions or questions through social media. They can email you, or maybe you have a dedicated website where they send in a form and give you suggestions for what they'd like to hear on the show. So engaging with your audience helps you to understand their interests better and provides a direct source of inspiration for you. It just makes your life easier. And number 12, you want to test and iterate. You want to keep on testing and iterating. Experiment with different topics and monitor the response from your audience. Pay attention to the episode analytics. That's important. Look at the feedback and get engagement metrics to gauge which topics resonate the most with your audience, and use this feedback to refine your future episode ideas. And lastly, number 13, keep on brainstorming. You always want to have that fresh paper in front of you, that notepad. You always want to have your Google Docs ready to jot down any ideas that might come to you, or maybe your notes on your phone as you're walking around the store and you get this idea. Sometimes a lot of my ideas come to me while I'm shopping. I don't know why. Grocery shopping seems to be the time when all of a sudden I get these ideas in my head that I need to record about. So having my notes handy on my phone, I can just type it in real quick and then I'll go home and do further research on it. But just sometimes you never know when inspiration hits. Okay. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed all of these tips on choosing podcast topics that your listeners will love. And I hope to hear from you. You can find my website at impactpodcastcoach.com. I'll be adding more to this podcast with time. Right now, life has just gotten so busy and I haven't been adding to my blog, but that's one of my intentions, is to get that blog moving and get more content there. For now, what I would love for you to check out is the Work With Me tab. If you go to the top of my website, there's a section that says Work With Me, and I have a program, which is a one-on-one podcast coaching service that allows you to ask me any questions you might have about branding, setup and marketing, podcasting techniques and show formatting, strategy and execution, equipment and gear analysis. I'll take a look at what you've got and tell you how to use some of it. I can help you with interviewing tips, software training, how to edit using Audition, using Adobe Audition or Audacity, and also help you with monetization strategies to get you started with making some money on your podcast, and advice on audience retention and podcast growth strategies. So those are some things you can do with me on my one-on-one coaching. I'll go ahead and give you the price for that is $250 for an hour of coaching. And stay tuned, because over the next couple of months, I offer sales and discounts during certain holiday seasons. So wink, wink, you may want to keep that in mind. If this is something that you feel like you need later on, there will most likely be some sales that I'll run on the coaching. And also, I do have a product available for you, and this product is called the Podcaster's Business Setup Guide Masterclass. It is a simple to use instructional setup guide. It's about 18 pages, and it comes with a full hour video that guides you step by step through the business tools that I've used, and which I highly recommend when you're setting up your online business as a content creator and as a podcaster. So you're going to learn all the basic online business and podcasting tools that I've used to grow my business over the past 17 years. And so you can find that available at impactpodcastcoach.com. It is $49. And so I wanted to have something that was quite affordable, and then also have the one-on-one coaching at $250. And I also have the VIP Podcaster Power Launch, which is quite a bit more because it is It's a VIP program. At the time, it is not available because I will be releasing this again at a different time. When this program opens, I'll be sure to let you know, but this is my VIP program that I'm really proud of and would love to have you join it. And I'll share more about that one later as I open doors for it again. It's the power launch, and it allows you to get your podcast up and running within 2 weeks. And so much more. So I can't wait to hear from you. And I hope that you'll reach out to me either by visiting impactpodcastcoach.com and clicking on the leave a voicemail tab on the very right-hand corner on the edge of the screen, or you can simply just email me at demetria.zinga@impactpodcastcoach.com, demetria.zinga@impactpodcastcoach.com, and I will be in touch with you. Until next time, happy podcasting.